Welcome back, everyone, to the Holistic Academy 2025. We host a new live episode on holistic education every Tuesday, weaving together ancient knowledge and modern wisdom, and finishing our talks with sharing 5 helpful well-being practices for you to live a healthy, happy, and holistic life. Welcome to our 7th episode, The Unfolding Mystery of Sleep. A journey through time. I'm Amy.
And I'm David, and today we are embarking on a journey into a realm that consumes just a third of our entire lives. Yet it remains a mystery, and it's the world of sleep.
Exactly. For most of modern history, we've treated sleep as a passive void, a simple biological off switch.
Mm.
But if you're looking back across human history, you'll find out that our ancestors saw it as something far more profound, a gateway to other worlds, a source of divine wisdom, and indeed a cornerstone of health.
Exactly. The story of sleep is really the story of how we understand consciousness itself. It takes us in a journey from myth to molecule, from a world of wandering souls to the intricate clockwork inside of our own cells. So let's pull back the covers and start where it all began, the ancient world.
Yes, let's look back into the ancient world. Thanks, David.
Mhm.
So, going back time, we need to imagine a world without artificial light. So, no light bulbs, perhaps no candles. The night was longer, darker, and fundamentally different then, as they must have had to switch off when the night started and the sun went down. For most of human history, people also didn't sleep in one solid 8-hour block. The norm was what we now call a biphasic sleep. This is really interesting to me because people would have a first sleep for a few hours after dusk, then they would wake up for an hour or two around midnight, and then go back for a second sleep until dawn.
And that waking period wasn't seen as insomnia.
Well, that is a good question. It's definitely a difficult condition. A lot of people in our modern society face insomnia. But
Mhm.
in fact, before they woke up, and it was actually a valued time, a productive time for prayer, contemplation, and intimacy. And this pattern was common everywhere, from ancient Greece to medieval England. In ancient Egypt, sleep was seen as a perilous threshold between the world of the living and the afterlife. They have a word for dream, which is resut, which literally means awakening, as if the dreamer was waking up into another plane of existence.
And was that plane of existence dangerous? Did they experience nightmares too?
Yeah, well, nightmares weren't just bad dreams. They saw them as literal assaults by demons or the hostile dead. That's why the ancient Greeks had beds with headrests covered in protective spells and images of armed guardian deities. It was a spiritual armor for a nightly battle. Even myself, in fact, when I don't have a very good night's sleep or I'm worried about things at night, I try and imagine just a glowing white light around me and the angels at the corners of my bed to protect me, and often I just fall straight asleep after that. So that's quite interesting. So, for the ancient Greeks, they had sort of images of these guardian deities, and it was a spiritual armor for a nightly battle. They even had these amazing dream interpretation manuals with good omens and also bad omens, and they marked them in different colors of ink.
Mm.
Then the Greeks and Romans gave a mysterious state of more of a face. This mysterious sleep, started to be personified into a god called Hypnos. He was a gentle god who was the twin brother of Thanatos, the god of the dead. But alongside this mythology, they began asking rational questions. Then the physician Hippocrates, we talk about him in every episode, he was the first to declare that sleep was essential for physical and mental well-being, even using dreams as diagnostic tools.
Wow. We don't really consider dreams as diagnostic tools today. In modern medicine, what about the Greek philosophers like Aristotle? What did he say about sleep? I'm curious because also we have mentioned him a lot.
That's a good question. Well, Aristotle, he offered perhaps the first truly physiological theory. He argued sleep wasn't about gods, but about biology, a necessary process for our body to restore itself, regulating our heat and digestion.
Mm.
So, a bit like how we see sleep today, it's important for the regulation of our own health. However, in this time, the divine view persisted, and people would travel at times of Aristotle to healing gods, especially a healing god Asclepius, and sleep there, hoping to receive a healing dream from the god himself, a practice called dream incubation. But
Yeah.
yes, let's go a bit east to ancient India, where the perspective of dreams isn't as much external and outward and this mysterious plane out of our body. But in ancient India, they look at us as sleeping with a perspective more inward, where Hindu philosophy, particularly in the Upanishads, describes four states of consciousness: the waking state called Jagrat, the dreaming state, as we're talking about, called Swapna. They talk about the deep dreamless state of sleep called Sushupti, and a fourth transcendent state of pure awareness called Turiya. So here, sleep wasn't a journey to meet gods, but an inward way to understand the nature of the self.
Wow. I think this is something that reminds us and mirrors the medical system of Ayurveda, which sees sleep as a fundamental pillar of life. And I think these are the whispers or the beginning of these four phases of sleep that nowadays we know we have. So the sleep quality is directly tied to the balance of your constitutional type or your dosha in this Ayurveda system. And the doshas are three fundamental bioenergies. One is called the vata, the other one is pitta, and the other one is kapha. That determine a person's unique constitution and influence their physical, mental, and emotional health. So these are also these beginnings of the holistic way of seeing our bodies and not just separation of the different systems that we have within us. So when we have an imbalance in the vata dosha, that might cause insomnia, while too much kapha leads to oversleeping.
Mm. The ancient Indian perspective is quite interesting to me. I definitely think I suffer with that oversleeping, kappa kind of out of balance. I just love my sleep. But yeah, that's an interesting perspective. And then I think it's important also to cover a bit of ancient China, where they had a different belief, I think, during sleep, where your ethereal soul or hun were detached from the body and wander to spiritual realms. A dream was a literal report of the soul's travels. In fact, dream interpretation was so important that the emperor in China employed professional interpreters to advise on matters of state, all based on manuals, such as the famous Duke of Zhou interprets dreams. So that's quite interesting. I definitely, in my experience, in my psychology in the past, have tried to analyze dreams, and it's kind of interesting what they might reveal about ourselves and our soul. But as we move forward as well across the timeline towards medieval Europe, many of these ancient ideas have persisted, but they've been filtered, I guess, through a new lens in that time of theology. Biphasic sleep is still the norm in this timeline, but that midnight waking period, the watch, was now dedicated to prayer, as the medieval time was a lot about coming back to religion and the church.
Mm.
And in that prayer, sleep itself was viewed with deep suspicion, as if a temporary death where you were vulnerable to the demonic assault. So we can see how those ideas have twisted over time, especially in different timelines. And dreams were seen as either messages from God or the devil, and the church decided which. So that was quite interesting. And then if you look into the medical system of the medieval period, they relied a lot on the classical ideas of Galen, who was a Greek physician, writer, and philosopher. And he exercised this dominant influence on medical theory and practice through the Middle Ages. And he was believing about his beliefs about sleep were crucial for balancing the body's four humours, which he defined as blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. And he said an illness would result from an excess or deficiency of these vital fluids.
Mm.
So, health in this view was a state of these humoral equilibriums, and a bad mood was a humoral imbalance, and sleep was the cure.
Well, that's just amazing how much wisdom we are missing just because this kind of information is sometimes hidden by by the platforms, by the algorithms now, and we missed a lot of things that nowadays are taking back into a more molecular, let's say, insight. So I can't deny I get sometimes moody if I don't have good sleep, and it's really, really difficult for me to sustain a good mood throughout the day if I don't have a good sleep. And in terms of nightmares, there might be some demons that sequester you from your peaceful sleep. And when you have nightmares, I think that they are trying to tell you something, and usually it's something emotional that happened during the day or during the last couple of days that you are bringing back. And those energies, those low frequency energies that we have in those interactions or discussions or whatever we have, are brought together in these nightmares. So they are just your own demons that are coming back to tell you that you need to deal with those kind of emotions. So there is a lot of wisdom in the interpretation of the dreams, and also Carl Jung spoke about that, and he made a really big current or branch of therapy that is related to this interpretation of the dreams. So moving forward, this brings us to the Renaissance, brought that a flicker of change, a new skepticism emerged. The writer Thomas Nash, for instance, dismissed prophetic dreams, arguing that dreams as undigested fancies, where he compared dreams to undigested food or an after feast made from the leftover thoughts and images from the day. So that's what we are discussing, that many times we have these leftovers from the day. And in terms of a physiological basis, he suggested that dreams are the confused, restless workings of the brain after the body has gone to bed. So much like a man's eyes adjusting after being in the bright sun. And this is some hints that our brain is working with a cleaning process and is flushing out our system of ideas, repetitive, ruminative thoughts, and is also trying to heal our regulation in terms of the emotions. So this is the important process that happens when we sleep in terms of having a good or a healthier mental health and not dealing with this kind of let's say low frequency emotions of anxiety or sadness and these things that we bring back into the day. So here he presented a new modern idea that dreams come from within us.
Yeah, I like that idea. I do think some of my dreams definitely relate to what's happened in the day, anything that I haven't digested or processed. And often, if I am watching TV before bed, I'll dream that I'm in the movie. So it's obviously something that's been programmed into me just at that vital time before sleep. But
Mm,
yes, I think we should also mention the philosopher Rene Descartes, where
mm,
he used the vivid, realistic nature of dreams to have this philosophical question spoken about. And I think it's something that we might also sometimes contemplate along our journey in our own lives. If a dream can feel completely real, how can I be certain that I'm not dreaming right now?
mhm,
How is you watching me not a dream? Well, it's also, yeah, a really important question then to question, what is reality and what is a dream and what is the difference? So, yes, it's a really important tool then as it moves forward in philosophy for questioning the nature of our reality.
mhm. Yeah, I think yeah, sometimes it's so vivid these kind of dreams that there is a very thin line that separates the reality from being in that night and in that peaceful state towards the wakefulness of the day. So this fascination is everywhere in the art and the literature of the time. Let's think of Shakespeare. Shakespeare didn't treat sleep as just rest, for example. For him, sleep revealed a character's conscience, guilt, and even redemption. Let's picture or let's try to imagine this. It's the middle of the night. The king is alone, pacing, restless. He looks out at his sleeping subjects and wonders why they can sleep so easily, while he, the king, cannot, in spite of the money. So, and then he says, one of Shakespeare's most quoted lines: uneasy lies the head that wears a crown. It's such a perfect image. Henry IV can't sleep because he's weighed down by guilt and worry. He knows he took the crown through rebellion, through blood, and now every moment of peace escapes him. And I think this is what happens with also many ambitious, heartless people that they just keep earning money and acquiring power and manipulating people and doing damage in the world and they can sleep. They don't have a clean consciousness to sleep. So, in terms of this king, his insomnia becomes a symbol of guilt, of the burden of kingship, and the moral unrest that power brings. And we can see this reflected nowadays also in Shakespeare's world. Sleep is the reward for those with innocent conscience. That's why children sleep so well. And Henry's sleeplessness proves that even the mightiest ruler can buy peace of mind. For King Lear, another ruler, but this time one who's lost everything, Lear has wandered through madness, grief, and betrayal, and he finally rests. He sleeps deeply, peacefully. Here, Shakespeare implies that it's the restorative sleep that brings back his sanity.
Those are some good examples from Shakespeare's works. I agree, and I love a bit of Shakespeare. I can relate to both. If I feel guilty, it's very hard to sleep. But also, when I sleep, I feel so much better in the morning, and you can imagine like it's a new day. So, yeah, that's an interesting reflection. And then, let's move forward to maybe the science, where the Enlightenment period accelerates the shift towards more scientific theories, where we move away from those liquids of the body, the humours, to more the brain and the nerves. I think some impactful event came from an astronomer, in fact, not a physician, where in 1729, this astronomer Demirian placed a mimosa plant in a dark closet and noticed that the leaves still opened and closed on a 24-hour cycle, even without sunlight. So this was showing that as it even opens without light, it's following a biological rhythm based on something that's happening outside of it. And this shows that, everything, we all relate to nature and have this internal biological rhythm. And modern scientists now call it the circadian rhythms. But this really was a cool research project, and his experiment was one of the first pieces of evidence that our behavior and physiology are governed by an internal clock, not just by external things like light. So yeah, Jean-Jacques Demirian's discovered that nature runs on its own rhythm. So sometimes we go against that rhythm and stay up a lot later than we should, or sometimes we give in to other emotions where we're just like, we're going to sleep and have an early night. But actually, our body, it's really important to keep the biological clock sort of integrated in your life, because you'll have a healthier lifestyle, you'll have more energy. You'll notice that you'll be going to the bed at similar times and getting up at similar times, so you have the same amount of sleep, and our body just thrives on that rhythm and that consistency. So yeah, even though his discovery revealed that, our natural rhythms are really important, especially in sleep, society then was moving in the opposite direction, where during the Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution, two major changes occurred. We had the development of artificial lighting, so we got candles, oil lamps, later gas, and now the electrical light. And so then we could extend our days artificially, which we do now, as I was speaking about. But also with the Industrial Revolution, there were high demands. You needed to be at work for long hours, and also waking up early. So that was the time where our traditional biphasic sleep pattern, where people slept in two segments, a period of quiet wakefulness where they woke in between to do some prayer, and it changed the whole realm of sleep into having this consolidated block of sleep of what we consider normal today. So for the first time in society, we moved away from that ancient biophasic pattern of sleep towards the single continuous block of rest. And I believe that this is probably creating a tension between our natural biology and the world around us. So it's amazing how many changes this lifetime of capitalism and consumerism and materialism have changed how we operate, but also how we function and how we sleep. So, David, what does modern science say now about sleep?
Well, just before passing to these modern times, I wanted just to reflect about this break of this biphasic dream, because I usually during nights I have also one period that I wake up and it's in the middle of the night, and sometimes this is probably related to these ancient cultures that we have, and many of these writers, poets, and creative people, they speak about this time where you are completely connected, let's say, with the other world, with the source world, with the divine. And that's when the flow of ideas come. And sometimes that's what was broken with this industrialization that we received or that we suffer throughout history. So now we are going to see what happens with this one block of sleep, or if we return to this ancient mode of biphasic dreaming or sleeping, no? So talking about now into the 20th century, and a true revolution, the key that unlocked the sleeping brain was the electroencephalogram, or EEG, that was invented by the German psychiatrist Hans Berger in 1929. And for the first time, we could see the brain's electrical activity. So when Berger recorded EEGs from people who were sleeping, he noticed that electrical activity of the brain changed dramatically compared to when they are awake. So this is also telling us that we are more light than something else. So there were slower brain waves, which became the foundation of what we now, call deep sleep. And he noticed decreased alpha waves. He suggested there are different sleep stages, which is related to what Amy already mentioned about the discovery of these circadian rhythms and the different stages, and the Ayurveda system also. So the EEG recordings provided the first scientific evidence that sleep is not a uniform state, but has different levels of brain activity. And so importantly, Hans Berger's sleep EEG recordings show for the first time that the brain is still active during sleep, and sleep has electrical patterns that change over time. In 1937, Alfred Loomis used it to map the first 5 distinct stages of sleep, A through E, and they were based on brainwave activity. So the bombshell discovery landed in 1953 at the University of Chicago. A professor named Nathaniel Kleitman, now known as the father of modern sleep research, and his graduate student Eugene Azarensky were studying sleep infants. They noticed periods where the subject's eye were darting back and forth rapidly beneath their closed eyelids. When they woke people up during these periods, they got vivid, narrative dream reports, and they call this new state rapid eye movement, or REM sleep. And the EEG readings were shocking. The brain during these RMA periods or of sleep look almost identical to an awake, alert brain. And this discovery shattered the millennia-old idea of sleep as a passive state of rest, and it proved that sleep was a dynamic, complex process, that we are just in the beginning of discovery what else is happening in this other world of sleep. What are we doing when we are moving our eyes in such a fast pace, and how these brain waves are creating things in that other period of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, is then dreaming really still a reality because we're acting as if we are awake in our dreams with the same brain activity? But I love that when science comes together with some new, amazing, innovative equipment like those EEG scans, and they can now measure the brain activity. It gives so much more insight to what's going on. And I also read before another of the Kleitman students, one called William Dement. He had also described that cyclical nature of sleep, showing how we move through stages of the non-REM and into the REM. And he showed that happens in patterns about every 90 minutes. So we must be having more than one dream a night if we're having consistent sleep. And I can validate that too. I'm sometimes on 20 different side quests in my dreamland when it's just one night of sleep. So yeah, that was really interesting. And I think also at the same time, that guy, that astronomer, Jean-Jacques Demirian, he discovered those biological rhythms at a genetic level. And moving on, a more specific experiment in 1971 with Seema Benza and Ronald Knupka, they exposed fruit flies to mutations or mutagens to provoke mutations. And they found some of these these fruit flies, had broken clocks, which weren't literal clocks, but fruit flies with genetic mutations that disrupted their natural timekeeping mechanisms. So they managed to trace this back to a single gene. So there's a gene inside of us, inside of everyone, that codes for our sleep rhythms. And they call this gene period. So this was the first gene ever to be linked to circadian rhythms, showing that our internal clocks are indeed genetically controlled.
It's really, really amazing how we don't have just one clock that says that we need to sleep. We have several clocks inside of us that are just synchronized every time we give our bodies this time to rest, to repair, and to clean many, many things that we are yet to discover. So, and this led to another paradigm shift. The master clock, the one that controls everything, isn't just in our brain. It turns out that nearly every single cell in our body has its own autonomous clock. And this means that each cell contains this molecular machinery that keeps time independent of the brain or external cues. So this is just like a good company working, is not depending on the boss, but they have their own rhythms and they have their own pace. So that's the way the world should work, just like our bodies, not like one boss that doesn't have consciousness and doesn't have structure and he just wants to impose fear into their employees. That's not the way it is. So, in other words, your body's timekeeping isn't controlled by just one master clock. So, it's just distributed throughout your tissues and your organs. This is why jet lag or shift work feels so terrible. It's not just your brain that's out of sync, it's a systemic cellular level chaos because there is no structure, there is no time to repair, to recover. So that brings us to today and the modern synthesis. All of this incredible science has confirmed with now molecular precision what our ancestors seem to know intuitively. Sleep is a non-negotiable pillar of health. So we have spent 2,500 years negotiating this, but it's non-negotiable. So
Yeah, I think it would be impossible to live without sleep. I'm sure there has been some studies on that where they've tried to keep people's eyes open by flashing bright lights in them, and over time they went into different states of seizures or psychosis. So it's just not a healthy way to live. It's impossible for us to stay awake. So let's talk about why we need sleep for our physical health. The main reason I believe we need sleep is during sleep, your immune system kicks in, so it helps sort of rest and repair. things such as your T cells and cytokines that fight infection and reduce inflammation. That's all happening during sleep. So that's why when you feel sick, you feel like you need a really good sleep to feel better. And sometimes after a few good sleeps, you feel amazing. So it's all about that time where your immune system is switched on and it's able to fight infection. And also, for those who don't like sleeping much, you are probably going to be more likely to get sick or disease in your body if you don't sleep well. And also, autophagy, we talked a bit about this in our last episode on fasting, but this is that idea of our cells self-eating. So this process happens in all of our cells where it cleans up and recycles any damaged or old cell parts. It might break down some misfolded proteins in our cells and it reuses what it's broken up to repair and renew cells. But this occurs all the time, but it's especially active during our sleep and fasting. So yes, if you didn't catch our last episode, it was all about fasting and the history of fasting and also the take on fasting in modern medicine. So it was really, really interesting. But fasting also promoted this cellular processes of autophagy or autophagy. And these periods of time are important for our own self-renewal as well. Not only that, our hormones are also regulated by our sleep. So we have a huge surge in the growth hormone when we sleep, and also it helps to repair tissues. So when we're a child and we go through puberty and we have our growth spurt, you might wake up one morning and you're 2 centimeters taller if you're lucky. And that's really because that growth hormone was really active at that time. And especially in sleep, it's much more present in the body as well. So not only that, when you sleep, we also feel less stress. The cortisol hormone drops, and that also creates an anti-inflammatory environment, which helps us heal and repair. As if you're more inflamed, that's where more illness happens. It also, sleep loss throws the appetite hormones as well, where leptin and ghrelin, they can be out of balance if you haven't slept enough. So a lot of people with obesity and type 2 diabetes, it's often linked to poor sleep, in fact.
Mm. Yeah, that brings back a lot of memories in terms of why people should just try and test this theory that we are just highlighting today. Just have one bad sleep and test yourself if you can avoid processed food or sugary food, and we'll see what happens. So this is just very, very easy to prove that your system needs the sleep time to have these hormones regulated and to help you have a healthier life, not just in the energy, but also in the hormones that for women, that we are going to speak more about that, are extremely important to take care of that. And perhaps most amazingly, we know the brain has its own waste clearance system that is called the lymphatic system. This is the period where removing extracellular waste from brain tissue that becomes dramatically more active during sleep. So it literally flushes out neurotoxins that build up during the day, including the beta amyloid proteins associated with Alzheimer's disease. And this is one of the most important things that I can highlight, because this is why we are having now also an epidemic of people having dementia at early stages of life because they sacrifice sleep or because they are just too stressed. They go to sleep, but the stress and the cortisol don't have time to go down and to allow this flushing of toxins. So the benefits for mental health are just as profound. A single night of sleep deprivation can impair your judgment and reaction time as much as being legally drunk. Probably that's why people drive so bad in Mexico, at least. So, sleep is also when your brain consolidates memories, strengthening the important ones and pruning the trivial ones. So you are becoming wiser, you are getting more intelligence, your IQ is spiking. But if you don't sleep well, you might pursue a career in politics, maybe. So deep sleep seems to be for facts and events, while REM sleep is crucial for skills and create problem solving. So that's why also you need this period of sleep.
Wow, that's fascinating that, yeah, you can cultivate skills in your sleep and learn how to be better at problem solving. Our brains are amazing, fascinating pieces of technology, amazing machines. There's still so much we don't know about them, but
Mm,
they're definitely more intelligent than AI. So it's important to learn how they work and how we can make sure they function best. So sleep is so important, and I really think as well it's crucial for emotional regulation, as when we're sleep deprived, our emotional center of the brain called the amygdala becomes hyperactive. And so when this happens, unfortunately, the rational part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, weakens.
mm,
So if you're sleep deprived, you're not able to think as calmly and logically, and therefore you're more prone to having anxiety, irritability, and mood swings. To be honest, I am terrible in the mornings. You don't want to wake me up unless I've had a good night's sleep, because I am an angry bear. So I can vouch for this. Sleep's so important for your emotions. And in fact, some studies have also shown that people with chronic insomnia have a tenfold greater risk of developing depression. So I think my sleep is sacred and important and is healthy for me. And I just need my 8 hours. So make sure if you're ever around me and I'm sleeping, don't disturb me. But yeah, it's quite interesting because I don't always have the best night's sleep. I even need the toilet quite often in the night, so I have quite a disturbed sleep. But I do think after today, I'm going to try and, well, I don't know if I will, but would like to try and do a biphasic sleep week and see what happens, how I feel in the night if I just have half an hour awake again or an hour awake and see what happens. But yes, as you've mentioned, David, about sleeping and science, I think personally, I think I need more sleep than a man. So is it true that women and men might have different sleep cycles and sleep patterns?
Well, yeah, I think we have differences there. And on average, women's body clocks run slightly faster, which means they tend to get sleepy and wake up earlier, more morning oriented by nature. So men's clock usually run a bit later, making them more alert in the evening. So this is switch for me because I'm not really good at night and I'm really good at the morning. So something happened there. So women also spend more time in deep and REM sleep, and the stages that restore the mind and body, but their sleep is often more fragmented, partly due to the hormonal shift across the menstrual cycle, pregnancy, or menopause. And men's sleep is steadier but closely linked to testosterone levels, which peak during deep sleep and early morning hours. In addition, there are a number of studies and articles suggesting that, on average, women may need a bit more sleep than men, or that their sleep is more demanding. And I think this is completely logical. I mean, the energy to sustain these menstrual cycles and to even create life is unimaginable. So any man could do that ever. So women need more energy for sure, and women spend more energy just sustaining those cycles. So we should be more understanding of the time for them. Otherwise, we will be uh, facing an angry bear, as Amy mentioned.
Absolutely, yes. Well, I'm glad that you clarified that. I do need much more sleep than men. So next time people are getting up early and trying to wake me up earlier, I'll let them know that I'm actually biologically wired to have more sleep. So please, please, please
Understand.
don't wake me up early. Well, yeah, people normally avoid me after they've done that once or twice. I'm totally unavoidable in the morning. There's no point. There's no, not worth having a bad day together. Anyway, it's been such an interesting discussion, hasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We really, really have gone into this modern science and how it hasn't replaced ancient wisdom so much as it has validated it with a new language and probably, of course, more technology. We now understand the why behind the what. We know why sleep is restorative, why it's essential for a sound mind, for a healthy mind, and why ignoring it is so detrimental to our health, physical and mental. And the story isn't over. As our 24/7 society continues to push against our fundamental biology, understanding and respecting the power of sleep has never been more important. It is a nightly act of restoration, and that connects us to our deepest biology and to our most ancient ancestors. And I was really, really eager to mention that also that's why the education system needs to change because children get up really, really early to comply with these schedules of the schools. And that is just something that needs to be taken into account because they are sacrificing sleep and they are sacrificing time and they are too stressed in the morning to receive any kind of education. No?
I agree. I didn't like ever waking up for school, as you can imagine. But I must also disagree at some points because some kids stay up all night gaming in this current reality, and that's not good. So we need to find a balance, getting our children in a good night routine, but making sure they definitely have their 8 hours. And yeah, maybe, like you say, David, a more flexible schedule at school might be more appropriate, especially if you do have a bad night's sleep, then not denying them that extra rest in the morning. However, with people working, it might not always work out because what's mum and dad going to do? They're not going to
Yeah.
sit at home whilst their job is starting just to make sure you've had enough sleep, unless you're sick. So, yeah, it's something that perhaps we just need to educate our children more on in the power of sleep and the importance of it and how they can work out, whether they're a man, a boy, or a girl, their own circadian rhythm. That would be a great experiment to try at home. How would you work out your own circadian rhythm? And then finding one that matches that and sticking to it. Anyway, thank you, listeners, for being here. It's been a long episode, but we do want to share our 5 helpful holistic well-being tips just at the end. So you're able to integrate the wisdom we've learned today into your daily life and improve sleep quality, and also potentially understand the power of our dreaming state.
Mm.
So number 1, honor your natural rhythm. Just as I was saying about the circadian rhythms, try to wake up and go to bed roughly at the same time, even on the weekends. Another way to regulate yourself with these rhythms is to go outside and expose your eyes to sunlight, natural light in your first hour of waking, as that helps to reset your circadian rhythm and enhances the alertness you get during the day. So might mean that you don't need to get a coffee straight away and you actually feel awake on that natural time that we are basically aligned to, as our ancient ancestors showed. And also that sort of being aware of the light and the dark, that helps support the melatonin practices production at night as well, improving our sleep depth and dream clarity. So our circadian rhythms are really important. They thrive on consistency. So when you have this internal stable clock that we can cultivate, both the depth of your sleep and our dream recall will improve dramatically. So I might try at least as well when I'm doing my biphasic sleep to make sure it's starting at the same time and waking up at the same time every day. But it will be hard knowing that life just happens. Number two that you can help is an hour before bed, you could like move into a pre-sleep ritual or pre-sleep time for yourself where you dim your lights, you silence your notifications, turn off your phone, maybe read, stretch. You could practice some deep breathing. And this signals to your nervous system it's safe to let go. You could even have a herbal tea before you sleep, like chamomile, lemon balm, or valerian. Or if you want to have a snack before bed, you might have foods rich in magnesium or tryptophan, like almonds, oats, and bananas, as this can help produce that natural production of melatonin and serotonin, which are crucial for a good night's sleep and vivid dreaming. And so, yeah, by having this sort of created space, an hour of time before you go to bed, it can be a sort of sacred space that you have between waking and dreaming, and something that you can do to self-care and self-soothe after a busy day working or playing, whatever you might be doing. Number three, we recommended this last week or 2 weeks ago, but it's all about keeping a dream journal. So when you wake up, write down any fragments, images, symbols, emotions from your dreams, jot it down. Don't see your dreams as just random, but see them actually as expressions of your inside knowledge, your inner wisdom. Notice any recurring symbols or emotions that happen regularly, as they might indicate something in your daily reality your mind overlooks. So this is an important place to access your unconscious realms, your shadow, or your blind spots, and actually improve your life. And yeah, so that practice of journaling your dreams bridges that subconscious and conscious mind and helps improve your dream recall. And I start in my own dreams, I've noticed symbols and themes and some emotional messages that emerge. So dream journals are great. They deepen your self-awareness, creativity, and your emotional balance. Number four, what else could you do? You could practice mindfulness during the day and cultivate more emotional clarity before sleep. So in the day, how we're living in our day is going to affect how we sleep at night. So we need to be more present, take moments of gratitude, sometimes take time to emotionally process stress or difficult conversations. Because if we've had time to process them in the day, then it will reduce our mental clutter that we might experience or re-experience in our dream or as a nightmare. So yes, meeting our waking life with more awareness can also improve our dream life, making it more meaningful for ourselves. And also, as we said, like unresolved feelings might reappear in dreams. So if you haven't had a chance to reflect in the day, you could still do some processing before night time, maybe with a journal or just thinking about what emotions am I carrying today? What could I release tonight? And that creates that sacred time just for a bit of healing and insight for your dreams rather than just replaying the stressful day out in your head as well. Oh, mouth. A cough to say the last one. It must be important. Number five, reduce artificial light at night. Well, I'm not going to turn my lights off now, but screens emit blue light, which tricks your brain into thinking it's daytime. And so you want to kind of avoid that. You could use maybe warmer, low lighting in the evening, or you could add a blue filter on your devices. But you're essentially trying to recreate that natural dusk that our ancestors lived by, signaling to our brain that darkness and dreaming are near. So thank you everyone for being here. I hope those tips will help you live and sleep much better. I hope this journey has been exciting, and I also hope that you'll sleep well tonight. But before you go, I'd just like to update you with what episode is coming up next week. So, David, what will we be discussing next week?
Well, next week, we are going to speak about unlocking the body's secret of our emotional files. So we will go deep into what happens when we store these emotions, and many times it's not just in one generation. It is also from past generations that we store this information of our emotions in our own DNA. So we are going to unravel these kind of secrets that our emotions are giving us. So if you thought sleep and dreams were fascinating, wait until this next time episode. We are diving into this hidden world of these stored emotions and in your body, what happens with your body, how tension, how stress, and this ancestral lineage shape not just your mood, but your posture, your breathing, and even your health. So trust me, you won't want to miss this one because your body has been keeping secrets and we are about to uncover them. Subscribe in our platforms. Join us for the next episode. We are here to learn with you how to listen to what our bodies have been trying to tell us all along. And we are going to give you a lot more information, and we are preparing a lot of masterclasses, courses, and more surprises for you. So subscribe in our platforms and rate us in the podcast in also Apple or Spotify.
Yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Please like our podcast and give it a rating. We're very new, but we'd love to share our knowledge and wisdom with other people. Also, if you've liked what you've learned, please share it with a friend who you think might also benefit. And we're also on Substack. We're going to be offering a new weekly newsletter with some of the key insights. And please comment if you found anything that was really interesting today, if you'd like any information, if you have any questions. And we'd love to reply and hear a bit more about you as we grow and expand. But thank you everyone for being here, and good night. And I hope you sleep super well. Take care.
Thank you, everyone, and we will see you in our next episode. Bye.